Where do the masters get their deranged ideas? What dark part of the mind do monsters like Freddy Krueger escape from? It's the stuff that nightmares are made of. But actually, the inspirations may be very real. Wes Craven knows that sometimes the truth is scarier than fiction.
I think the basis of most of my films is essentially true life. I mean, in some form. I haven't done many, with the exception of maybe Swamp Thing, any really like supernatural monster type things. And I have found a lot of really compelling stories just in newspapers or books. Hills Have Eyes, Serpent and Rainbow, People Under the Stairs, even Nightmare on Elm Street came from newspaper articles.
I remember reading an article in the LA Times about, I believe, Cambodian refugees. And because they were so disoriented and so, you know, sort of out of any comfortable surroundings, the Cambodians in the Midwest were unable to wake themselves up and purge themselves of their bad dreams and their nightmares. And they were literally dying in their sleep. Wes also has an experience as a child that he and his brother experienced when his parents were out one night. Wes looked out of their upstairs window down onto the street and saw a man with soot and scabs and an old hat. The man looked up, looked at little Wes, and made eye contact with Wes and freaked Wes out, and he closed the curtain or pulled the blinds down or whatever was necessary. Told his brother about it, was freaked out, was afraid to look back out, peeked again, and the guy was still looking right at the place in the window where Wes had looked out.
The kind of peak pictures that I've made were very much my kind of reading of the current sort of psychological, social situation that I perceived in the world, in the United States in specific, to kind of a B-movie genre format, but making it as deep as I could and as deeply embedded in kind of the cultural zeitgeist of the time. We knew we were going into really a very unstable environment. Haiti had had essentially a citizens' revolution about 9 months before, where they had thrown Baby Doc out. And the only real law and order in the place was the army and the voodoo priests. So we were able to hire the army, and then with the voodoo priests, we basically just went in and said, we want to make this movie about voodoo, and we want to be respectful to it, and we want your help and protection. So we were guided to the supposedly the most powerful voodoo and priest on the island, and he sort of basically gave us protection, and he actually gave us an assignment because we were on a location scout at the time. He said, the next time you come back, bring me some gold chains and some other things. And so David and Ladd and I actually found ourselves 2 weeks later in Beverly Hills going into a jewelry store buying gold chains. And the guy finally says, are these for a little girl? Or are they for an adult? We said, no, actually, it's for a voodoo ceremony. We had a very, very personal, hands-on experience with all of the sort of Voodooan culture. And a lot of the ceremonies on screen are being performed by real Voodooan people who do that. And quite often the people that were playing Voodooan people were the actual characters from Wade Davis's life. So yeah, it was very, very real. As opposed to the Hollywood voodoo, it is a whole religion, and they have ceremonies for, I mean, 90% of it is ceremonies just like Christianity or Judaism would be. And then there's this little sliver of voodoo that is involved with making zombies, which is kind of a little splinter group, and they do all these kind of dangerous spells and create zombies. They're absolutely real, but they're not what most people think. They're not people that have died and been brought back, but they are people that have been poisoned in a way with a psychotropic drug called tetrodotoxin, I believe, tetrodotoxin, which is a very, very complex drug that makes you appear to be dead, but you have respiration and heartbeat, but it's very, very spare, to the point that a doctor, if he's not really looking for it, will miss it. And most people in Haiti, if they appear to die, they are buried quickly because there's not refrigeration or processing of bodies. There's two processes. One is they sort of knock you out and make you appear to be dead. You're buried, and then the person that did that to you, who knows you're not really dead, will let you wake up in the coffin, gasp for air, claw, suffocate. The last second they dig you out, because people are buried in very shallow graves there. And then they have a second part of the process where they give you datura, which is a very powerful hallucinogenic drug. And they just keep giving it to you and keep beating you and keep telling you that they're taking your soul until you literally, most of your neural circuits are burned out. So there you are, you're a person completely traumatized, you're convinced your soul is gone, and it's like somebody gave you 2,000 acid trips in a row. All of your relatives think you're dead, and then they just let you go. So here's this dazed, person, damaged mentally, goes wandering through the countryside, and the first person that sees them and recognizes, oh my God, it's the living dead. Richard Maxwell was our writer, and we were doing a rewrite on the third act when we were down there just at the end of pre-production. And he was doing interviews, and he interviewed the man who taught Wade Davis, who was the writer of the original book, how he made zombies. And so Richard went down and interviewed this guy, and at the end, Richard, who was interested in all sorts of spiritual things, said, I'd love to be indoctrinated into voodoo sometime. And the guy, who was a very sly character, said, well, then you will be. So somehow he must have dosed Richard in that visit, because Richard came back and just basically went mad in the course of a week. He locked himself into his room. He stopped wearing clothes. He was telling us he was writing, but he couldn't concentrate. And finally, the day before we started shooting, actually the morning we started shooting, I woke up at like 5 in the morning. Somebody was knocking on my door of my room. They'd come in over the rooftop and onto my patio. And I opened the door. Here's Richard, dazed and haggard, unshaven. I looked down, all around his feet are cigarette butts. He'd been there for half the night. And he said, I just wanted to wish you good luck because the voodooans and the producers are in league against me and they're going to kill me. And he was literally taken to an airplane, flown from where we were, way out in the boondocks, to Port-au-Prince, and then put on an airplane. And his wife met the plane in Miami, took him back to Los Angeles, and 4 days later he woke up, lucid, and the last thing he remembered was that guy saying, well, then you will be.